The arena went silent. Not the kind of silent that happens when the crowd catches its breath. Not the kind of silent that follows a big move or a near fall. This was a different kind of silence. The kind that crawls up your spine. The kind that makes 60,000 people hold their breath at the exact same moment, like the whole world just stopped. And then it happened. That bell. Those four iconic gongs that have haunted WWE for over 3 decades. And every single person in that arena knew the dead man had returned. Welcome back to Wrestling Impact. I'm your host, and tonight we are breaking down one of the most jaw-dropping moments in recent Raw history. The Undertaker returned to Monday Night Raw, and what he did next, what he said to AJ Styles, has left the entire wrestling world absolutely shaken. If you are a fan of the Phenom, if you have ever felt those goosebumps when the lights went dark, then you need to stay locked in right here, because this story is something else entirely. Let's get into it. Now, to understand the full weight of what happened on this historic Monday Night Raw, you have to understand the atmosphere heading into that night. The WWE Universe had been buzzing for weeks. Social media was on fire. Backstage reports were swirling. Cryptic messages had been appearing on the WWE's official channels, brief flickers of darkness on the screen during commercial breaks, shadows moving in empty corridors. The production team played it perfectly. Every week, a little more tension. Every week, a little more speculation. Was it a returning superstar? Was it a new signing? Nobody knew. And that mystery? That mystery was eating wrestling fans alive. And then there was AJ Styles, the phenomenal one. If you need to be introduced to AJ Styles at this point, you might be new to wrestling, and welcome, you've picked an incredible time to start watching. AJ Styles is arguably the most complete in-ring performer of his generation. He arrived in WWE with a legacy that stretched across every major wrestling promotion on the planet, and since joining WWE, he has done nothing but validate every single word of that reputation. He's a former WWE champion, a former Universal Champion contender, a man who has headlined WrestleManias and stolen the show every single time. But here's the thing about AJ Styles that makes him such a compelling character: he's not just great in the ring, he's magnetic on the microphone. He knows exactly how to get under people's skin. And in the weeks leading up to this particular episode of Raw, AJ had been particularly loud, particularly boastful. He'd been cutting promos about how there was nobody left to challenge him, nobody on the roster who could match him, nobody who could step into his world and survive. He even went so far as to say, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the era of legends was over, that the old guard had had their time, and the future belonged to the phenomenal. Bold words. Incredibly bold words. And as any wrestling fan will tell you, when someone starts talking like that in WWE, the universe has a funny way of responding. So picture the scene. Monday Night Raw. The crowd is electric from the opening bell. 3 matches deep into the show, and the energy is already through the roof. AJ Styles had just wrapped up an incredibly entertaining in-ring segment where he dismissed yet another challenger, sending them packing with that signature smirk of his, that cocky roll of the shoulders, that dismissive wave of the hand like he was shooing away a mosquito. The crowd is booing. Some are cheering, because AJ Styles, even as an arrogant villain, is just too good to fully hate. He grabs the microphone, and he does what he does best. There is nobody, AJ says, his voice dripping with confidence, pacing the center of the ring. Nobody in that locker room. Nobody on this roster. Nobody in the history of this business who has done what I have done, the way that I have done it. I am the most phenomenal professional wrestler who has ever lived. And if anybody has a problem with that, you know where to find me. He drops the microphone. He's about to exit the ring. The crowd is buzzing, half in admiration, half in genuine irritation. And then, the lights go out. Complete darkness. Not a flicker. Not a gradual fade. Just instant, total, absolute darkness. And then boom. That bell. One gong. The crowd erupts. Not into cheers, not into boos, into something primal. Something instinctive. That sound is embedded into the DNA of every wrestling fan who has ever watched the sport, and the reaction is not something you choose. It just happens. Your body responds before your brain can process it. 2 gongs. 3. 4. And then that music. That deep, rolling thunder of an entrance theme that has been sending chills down spines since the early 1990s. The arena lights begin to shift deep purple and blue, casting long shadows across the stage. And there, emerging through a wall of smoke that seemed to rise from somewhere far below the stage itself, is the silhouette. Tall, measured, deliberate, every step carrying the weight of 30 years of legend. The Undertaker has returned to Monday Night Raw. Now, I need to paint this picture properly, because the visual storytelling of this moment was absolutely breathtaking. The production team, hats off, they understood the assignment completely. As Undertaker made his way to the ring, the camera cut between close-ups of fans and the crowd. You could see a woman in her 40s, tears streaming down her face. A teenager who was probably too young to have caught the Attitude Era firsthand, but clearly raised right by wrestling parents, absolutely losing his mind. A group of friends grabbing each other by the shoulders, screaming. You've seen these reactions. You know these reactions. Maybe you've had this reaction, because this is what The Undertaker does. No other performer in the history of professional wrestling commands that specific energy, that specific reverence. And across the ring, AJ Styles is standing completely still. Now, AJ is a veteran. AJ has faced legends. AJ has been in high-pressure situations that would break most performers. But in this moment, for just a fraction of a second, before the professional mask snapped back into place, you could see it. A flash of something real cross AJ's face. Call it surprise. Call it recognition. Call it something very close to concern. It was there. The camera caught it. And the internet went absolutely wild over that clip. Undertaker climbs the ring steps, methodical, theatrical, every movement part of the performance, and steps over the top rope. He walks to the center of the ring, and for a long moment, he simply stares at AJ Styles. AJ, to his credit, doesn't back down. He holds the eye contact. He even lets a little smile creep back onto his face, that survival mechanism of his kicking in if you're scared, perform confidence until the confidence becomes real. The crowd is screaming. The atmosphere in that building is unlike anything you could manufacture. This is 30 years of mythology standing in front of one of the greatest active competitors in the world, and the tension between them is almost physically tangible. And then The Undertaker reaches out and asks for a microphone. This alone gets a reaction. Because The Undertaker speaking is not something that happens casually. Every word he chooses lands like a stone dropped into still water. The silence before he speaks is always the longest silence of any given broadcast. And in that silence, 60,000 people and millions watching at home lean forward just a little bit. AJ Styles, Undertaker says, and just those two words delivered in that voice are enough to send another wave of energy through the crowd. I've been watching. I've been listening. And I have to say you've been doing a lot of talking. AJ shifts his weight. He keeps that smirk. I say what's true, AJ replies, and you have to respect the courage it takes to cut off the Undertaker mid-moment. Only AJ Styles. Undertaker doesn't blink. You've been telling this world that the era of legends is over. That the old guard is done. That nobody from the past could survive in your present. A pause that lasts just long enough to make the whole arena collectively uncomfortable. So let me make an announcement. And here it is. The moment. The moment that broke the internet within about 40 seconds of it happening. AJ Styles. At the next premium live event you will rest in peace. The crowd detonates. Absolute pandemonium. You can feel it through the screen, through the television, through your phone if you were watching on the app. It's one of those moments where the energy is so pure and so overwhelming that it becomes almost impossible to describe in words. Undertaker has just issued a direct challenge to AJ Styles. An official, unambiguous, gloves-off challenge. And the wrestling world will never be the same. Now, AJ's response was something else. And this is where that character work that AJ has developed over years of absolutely elite storytelling pays off. Because AJ didn't crumble. AJ didn't look like a man who had just been handed a death sentence, at least not for long. He looked at The Undertaker. He looked at the crowd. He let the noise wash over him. And then he did something that had some people in their living rooms screaming at their screens. He laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not a laugh that's covering for fear, though maybe there was an element of that underneath. He laughed like a man who had just received exactly the kind of challenge he had always wanted, even if he'd never admit to wanting it. And he leaned into the microphone that was still in Undertaker's extended hand and said, quietly enough that the crowd had to settle slightly to hear him, "Dead man, you just made the biggest mistake of your life." He dropped the microphone. Or rather, he placed it carefully in the Undertaker's hand. Deliberate. Disrespectful. Perfect heel work. And he exited the ring with that walk, that confident, infuriating, phenomenal walk, while The Undertaker watched him go, completely still, the thunder of his entrance theme resuming as the lights shifted back to full brightness. The segment was over. The challenge was set. And every single wrestling fan on the planet immediately started calculating what that match could look like. Let's talk about what this means, because there are layers to this that go beyond the surface spectacle. AJ Styles vs. The Undertaker is not just a match. It's a collision of two wrestling philosophies, two eras, two definitions of greatness. The Undertaker represents something eternal in professional wrestling. He is mythology made flesh. Over the course of his career, he has faced virtually every major name in WWE history, and the vast majority of those matches have been not just good, but genuinely historic. His WrestleMania streak, his Hell in a Cell battles, his ministry, his American Badass reinvention, his return to the Deadman character. Each phase of The Undertaker's career could fill an entire career's worth of highlights for a lesser performer, and he's lived all of them. AJ Styles, on the other hand, represents the pinnacle of what the modern era of professional wrestling looks like when it reaches its absolute apex. He is technically brilliant, athletically extraordinary, and psychologically complex in the ring in ways that very few performers ever achieve. He can be funny. He can be terrifying. He can be sympathetic. And he is at his absolute best when he's playing the villain, who is also, somehow, undeniably the most talented person in the building. The dynamic between them is gold. Pure storytelling gold. You have the legend who refuses to stay dead, and I mean that both literally in the character sense and figuratively in the career sense, and you have the phenomenal one who has spent his entire WWE tenure proving that the future is his, and is alone. Neither of them is wrong. Both of them are right. And that's what makes this rivalry electric. In the days following that Raw, the reaction from the wrestling community was overwhelming. Clips of the confrontation circulated everywhere. Former wrestlers were weighing in on social media. Fans who hadn't watched WWE in years were suddenly tuning back in. That's the Undertaker effect. And that's the AJ Styles effect. When those two forces combine, the gravitational pull is undeniable. And backstage, by all accounts, and I want to be careful here because I'm dealing only in what's been reported through credible channels and what makes sense based on what we've seen backstage, there was reportedly a significant energy around the announcement. The locker room, as they say, stood up and took notice. Because when The Undertaker makes an appearance like that, it sends a message not just to his opponent, but to every single person in that building. It says, these moments still matter. This history still matters. And the stakes have just been raised for everyone. For AJ specifically, the challenge represents something beyond a match. It represents a legacy moment. AJ Styles has done virtually everything there is to do in professional wrestling. But a prominent, high-profile rivalry with The Undertaker, on this stage, in this era? That's the kind of chapter that gets written about for decades. That's the kind of program that a performer carries with them for the rest of their career. Win or lose, AJ Styles in a major program with The Undertaker is something that elevates both men and the entire product simultaneously. Now let's talk about the possible directions this story could go, because as wrestling fans, speculation is part of the joy. It's part of the conversation. It's what we do. Scenario 1, and this is the one that the purists, the longtime fans, the people who have been watching since the 90s will want, is a straightforward, hard-hitting, emotionally charged match where both men go absolutely to war. AJ uses every trick in his considerable arsenal to Styles' clash, the phenomenal forearm, his unmatched ability to sell and to pace a match, while Undertaker brings the physicality and the atmosphere and the sheer force of personality that makes everything he does feel important. A classic structure, executed by two masters of their craft. The crowd would be unreal. The commentary would be breathless. And the finish, whatever it is, would feel definitive. Scenario 2 involves the phenomenal one leaning fully into the heel role. Interference. Manipulation. Psychology games. AJ trying to get into The Undertaker's head before the match even starts. The backstage segments that would accompany that kind of build would be compelling television. AJ scheming, cutting promos that walk the line between hilarious arrogance and genuine menace, while Undertaker's responses are minimal, cryptic, and somehow more threatening for their simplicity. This is the slow burn. This is the kind of storytelling that Raw used to do brilliantly and, when it does it right, can still be absolutely captivating. Scenario 3, and this is the wild card, involves a swerve. Something unexpected. Perhaps someone aligned with AJ. Perhaps an old alliance resurfacing. Professional wrestling loves its complications, and a program this big often attracts additional characters the way a storm attracts lightning. Whatever direction they choose, the foundation is perfect. The pieces are in place, and the WWE Universe is ready. I want to take a moment to speak directly to what this moment represents beyond the wrestling itself. Because for fans who have grown up with The Undertaker, and there are multiple generations of them at this point, moments like this carry an emotional weight that's genuinely hard to articulate. The Undertaker has been part of people's childhoods, their teenage years, their adulthoods, their parenting. People have watched him with their parents. They've watched him with their own children. He is a connecting thread through decades of memories, and every time that music hits, it's not just a wrestling entrance, it's a time machine. And for fans of AJ Styles, and AJ's fanbase is among the most passionate and loyal in professional wrestling, seeing their guy step into a program of this magnitude is validating in a way that goes beyond results. It's the universe saying, yes, this man is in the conversation with the all-time greats. It's a recognition of everything AJ has built and accomplished. That's what great professional wrestling storytelling does at its best. It makes the stakes feel real. It makes you care about what happens. It connects to something emotional in the audience that transcends the athletic competition and becomes something closer to mythology. And right now, in this moment, that's exactly what WWE has achieved with this angle. As we head toward the premium live event, as the weeks of build unfold, as AJ Styles continues to be magnificently obnoxious and The Undertaker continues to be magnificently terrifying, one thing is certain: the eyes of the wrestling world will be locked onto this story. Every Raw will be appointment television. Every segment involving either man will be dissected and analyzed and celebrated. And when those two finally step inside that ring together, it will be one of those nights that people talk about for a long time. Because that's what happens when you have the right match, the right timing, the right storytelling, and the right performers. Magic isn't a word we use lightly in professional wrestling. But some nights, some matches, some rivalries, they earn it. And this earns it. Thank you so much for watching Wrestling Impact. If this breakdown had you feeling those goosebumps all over again, if you lived that moment with us here tonight, please hit the like button right now. It means the world to this channel, and it helps more wrestling fans find us. Drop your predictions in the comments below. Who do you think walks out of that premium live event with the victory? Who wins when the phenomenal one meets the dead man? Your take matters, and this community has the most passionate, knowledgeable wrestling fans on the internet, so let's hear it. And if you are not yet subscribed to Wrestling Impact, what are you doing? We are here every single week, breaking down the biggest moments, the best matches, and the stories that make this sport the greatest in the world. Hit subscribe, hit the notification